What is going on, everybody? In this video, we're providing you a state of the market and stock picks for March 30th, 2023. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, consider subscribing as we do provide daily and weekly updates to get you prepared for the day and the week ahead in this glorious markets. So today was an interesting day. There was some strength today in the markets, and something I've always talked about is if there's no news, the market will naturally start pushing back up, and that's what we kind of started to see today. And the thing is we are getting in earnings mode. I have been mentioning this a couple times that we are about 2 weeks out from earnings. We will start off with banks and then get some big tech. So naturally, in a normal cycle, you'll get some sort of a push up. Question is anything going to happen between now and those 2 weeks? Again, the market sentiment is changed. Yes, inflation is still high. Yes, there's a battle with the Fed. Those will be important, but all overall, what can change everything is the fact that we are in a banking crisis. Now, like I've stated, we have seen a lot of money transition from the smaller banks into the larger banks um, over the past 2 weeks. Still hearing a lot of rumors about a lot of other of these Deutsche Bank, First Republic, Wells Fargo, to some extent, that things are not in great shape. Today, Fed Bar was giving testimony, and he actually had some interesting insight into how the SVB uh, bank, essentially how that all went down. So there was a lot of detail in there, which was interesting to listen. Obviously, it wasn't enough to really sync the market. Again, it's not a big pivotal event, but again, very interesting details on how banks are pretty much getting just um, not even getting a slap on the wrist. They get bailed out, may raise their voice a little bit, but nothing really happens. And so that was kind of the insight we got today, which was interesting to see. And again, there's not a lot of details. This is the thing you have to understand is like, even though it's only been about 2 weeks since SVB started, it takes a while for the information to come out. And so with all the current stuff going on, it'll take a while, roughly around when we start getting bank earnings. You get a lot more details about everything. And so moving forward, again, things are in an interesting state. Inflation is still too high, and Fed will continue to try to lay on rates, and you will get more bank failures. There's a lot of interesting information coming out about liquidity and about and a lot of different aspects as far as things going on behind the scenes. And like I said, they will essentially try to control the narrative on what is going on. And I don't know how many times you turn on any news outlet or anything, all you hear is strong and resilient, strong and resilient. That's all you hear every 2 seconds to try to provide reassurance. That is more so just kind of like almost a stall technique to see to make sure that everybody's okay and not draw panic, right? You don't want people pulling out more money. Of course, at this point, I think if anybody was going to move money, they would have already done it by now. I think more so now, it's just waiting to see what essentially when the next foot will drop. If it will drop is the big question. Again, I think naturally in the current state that we're in, we're still in a very fragile state. Things need to break down even more. And it's obvious the Fed believes so too if they're continuing to raise rates. So again, we'll see what happens. Again, don't want to fear monger too much, but I ultimately want to see how this does play out. I think we are close to a pivot. But with that being said, this closing pivot, um, we need again you're going to need something bigger to happen for the Fed to actually start cutting rates. And so until that happens, the Fed will continue to lay rates on, and we got a while before the next one. So nonetheless, the biggest thing I think, in my opinion, again, is setting up for earnings mode. Again, no news is good news, so we'll continue to start pushing and then go from there. If we continue to go down this road and nothing happens, then we'll just start pushing up. But until then, just be very cautious about the current sentiment and what's currently going on. Again, there's a lot of chatter about overseas And talking about stagnation is a strong possibility, and it's essentially the worst of both of inflation and deflation at the same time. You get all the joys of deflation with everything, with unemployment and job losses and everything else going on in the world, but you also have high inflation, which is kind of what we're seeing right now. We'll see what happens. It's really hard to tell. Those things you can't really tell until you get more information, and again, that's ever changing on all the new data that does come out. So to try to project something like that, it's for me, it's just been wait and see. I've always been more of a swing trader most of the time, majority of the time, and for me, it's always been more so looking at uh, what's going to happen in the next about 2 to 3 weeks. And in my opinion, I'll project and have a theory about what I think is going on, but I don't get too caught in the weeds because it can change a lot. And understand that one piece of data can change the sentiment of everything. And this is why I talk about the sentiment of everything has changed with the banking crisis, and that we're in a much more fragile state right now. So with that being said, I don't need to keep beating that dead horse, but going into tomorrow, we'll see what we have. We do got some space. I think we could potentially run back up to the 4100. Strong possibility. You are coming into this zone here, though, so you have to be careful because we could flip at any moment here. Normally, you have to understand Wednesdays are a typical pivot point for the week. And so if we were going in one direction, you'll typically find that the market does switch and go the other direction during the week. So it'll be interesting to see if we do try to push tomorrow, or we turn over and start selling off again. Again, it really depends what happens overnight. It could be a news article, something bad happen, could start selling off is a strong possibility, or could start pushing up because we are starting to get in earnings mode. I think earnings mode really won't like take full effect until maybe like next week, as long as we don't get any bad news. I think we can get like almost close to full on earnings mode towards the back half of the week, and then that week just before earnings, so you start getting it more of a pump. So, and again, it's really dependent on what's going on, right? If anything comes of the banks, they again can change the dynamic of the day, and we can just start selling off. We can very well wake up, the market will be down almost 150 points, right? I think it's a very strong possibility in the current the fragile state in which we are in. So you just have to be very careful of that. So that being said, as long as you have a plan, you'll be more than okay. So we'll see what happens with SPX. Again, the dollar, I'm not going over the dollar anymore. I think right now it's so manipulated with what's going on with the market right now, with the banks, now that the banks have changed the market, that it's going to go wherever it's going to go. Ultimately, if more banks start folding, the dollar is just going to come down anyways. It's not that big of a deal, in my opinion. I think it's giving a lot of false starts right now with what's going on with the banks. So we really just have to watch the banks, in my opinion, and we'll see what happens from that front. So Bitcoin still again needs to break the 30K mark. We'll have to see if that's going to be possible. Let's see if we're going to able to decouple. Is something we're really watching here, and along with the bank crisis. So as of right now, it needs to break the 30K. It's got pretty strong support at the 24K mark. So looking to see if it does touch back. It did break, but we really haven't had a touchback. So I am expecting some sort of pullback at least to there. You want to at least retest here, and then if it's going to go higher, not just retest and then break down. You don't want that. So, but since you have a good bull case, you want this thing to at least touch back to at least the roughly around the 25K mark and then continue up. So we'll see what happens there moving forward. Tesla been pretty choppy for the most part. Again, it's playing a really tight range, roughly between that 200 and the 186 mark. So we'll see if this thing continues to rattle around here. As long as the market holds, this thing could start kicking into earnings mode again. Again, you get really close to a ceiling here at roughly around that 200. The 200 again is a strong ceiling, and then you got another Pretty strong ceiling, roughly around here, around that 212 mark. So again, a very hard ceiling. So we'll see what happens there. When we start getting earnings mode, could be enough to potentially pop this thing up. But again, we'll wait and we'll see moving forward from there. Don't want to go over NVIDIA. NVIDIA, again, is still too high, in my opinion. It needs to you can get some change in NVIDIA. Snow is a good one potentially look out for. I've been kind of watching this one. It's been kind of settling close to the support here. I do like this setup. It could potentially run up to at least the 173. Strong possibility. At least fill his gap here, at least up to 153. So this could be a good play. This is one I've been kind of watching closely to see if this could potentially play out. BA as always. Again, just sideways garbage. Again, the top, it needs a big 220, or it needs to essentially hold the 188. I know that's a big range, and we got these zones here, but again, it's just been chopping. So in my opinion, it really just isn't worth even looking at until it breaks out of this range ultimately. So I don't like playing BA because it's normally pretty choppy. Now it's like super choppy. So the banks, again, still holding. It just looks like junk. This is all, I don't like any of this. This is just complete junk. But again, waiting for earnings. JPM is at April 14th. So looking for that. April 14th is actually on. Look, would you look at that? Is on a Friday. I called that one nonetheless. So we'll see what happens there. GS, again, it's trying to battle back. Now, this thing could potentially be in a strong bull case. The banks are set up in a good position aside from JPM. I think still needs to pull back some, but they've had nice retracements, and so it is a higher low. So that is more of a bullish signal, in my opinion. Again, you have a catalyst going on and a lot of real shady stuff going on that I think there's still a lot of panic behind the scenes that we're just not seeing yet. So just be careful of that. BAC, a lower low here. So even if it does pop, it might just turn over and die. Again, I don't trust the banks right now. I wouldn't, again, that's just my opinion, but we'll wait and see there. I did want to bring this one up as well. HD is kind of much like Snow. I do like the fact it's sold off a lot here. It is resting on some support here. We are coming into earnings, still isn't for a while, so we got about 2 months for earnings for them. But if typically in during when everything was selling off, value really took over, and I think we might eventually get a switch here where tech starts dying off again. And it'll essentially be the banks just holding, and then value potentially starting to step in and start pushing again. So that's why I do like HT here. We'll see what happens, but I think at least try to get a gap fill, potentially up to the 315. But we'll see. Wait and see. This thing could still potentially drop down here to the 269. So again, watching that, but I do like it starting to hold here. This is one thing I do look at a lot is when it starts consolidating. And then the next thing you know, this thing pops up. You get a nice pop, and then it just starts running like crazy. So I do like HT for the watch. And that's pretty much it. Again, I'm starting to get more into actual tickers again. I think it's time to start rotating, even if this potential crash happens. You have to be ready because again, in my opinion, if we do crash, that it's going to be a quick recovery from that crash, and then we're start moving up, in my opinion, to a recovery. So with all that being said, yeah, that's pretty much all we got. Like I said, I don't want to make these videos too long. There's not really a lot of information. The last couple of videos I've had have been really long, but it was necessary. Now there's just not really much going on. We're kind of getting into earnings mode. We know that there's the bank crisis going on. We'll keep very tight and manage risk during times like this. But ultimately, we're waiting for that to play out. Again, liquidity is still being a big issue. A lot more layoffs have happened again. So just be mindful. These things are still real and going on, and inflation is still high at 6%. So there's still a lot of things going on. So still trying to get down to that 2%. we wake up, and this is why I do morning calls to try to see what the market sentiment is, because it can change day to day, especially in this environment. It's very sensitive to a lot of stuff. Um, so that's where we are. And then we take it from there. So if you made it this far, I do appreciate you. Go ahead and drop a like. And until next time, I'll see you guys later.